Hello again. I'm Maria Edelson, and I want to welcome you back to Starbucks JBP online video series, Module 2. You may recall the learning objectives for this series. As a result of participating in all 3 modules in this series, we believe you will be able to explain what joint business planning is and how it differs from annual business planning. 2, know and be able to use the process with one of your customers. And 3, if appropriate, be able to start or engage in the joint business planning process with your customer. This series will ensure you have the knowledge, have practiced the skills, have the ability to engage internally within Starbucks to gain agreement, and finally, have the ability to engage externally with your customer to get started. There are 3 modules in this series. In the last video, you completed Module 1. That included a definition of joint business plans, how it differs from any other kind of business planning that you might be doing, an introduction to the 5 steps of joint business planning, and remember, you completed Step 1, understanding your customer. Today, in Module 2, we're going to focus on Step 2, aligning internally. And we're going to concentrate on value elements and building initiatives. In the next video, Module 3, we'll conclude by focusing on the final 3 steps: align top to top, engage the account, and finally, deliver and measure. So let's jump right in to Module 2. As a result of participating in this module, we believe you will be able to recognize the difference between a JBP initiative and just a Starbucks idea, be able to identify Starbucks high-value elements for the customer and the customer's high-value elements for Starbucks, create mutually beneficial initiatives, and align internal stakeholders. So let's begin Step 2 of this 5-step process. This step answers the question, do we agree on the actions we will take with the account? If Step 1 was focused on the customer, then Step 2 is focused on Starbucks. First, by ensuring you're creating initiatives to work on that are worthwhile and important to Starbucks. And then, by enrolling and aligning all of the key stakeholders and senior leaders to your initiatives. So why are key initiatives so important? Good question. Key initiatives are the drivers of the JBP. Each key initiative provides a benefit to both the customer and to Starbucks. The best key initiatives delivers something that neither the customer or Starbucks could accomplish independently. So yes, these are usually big undertakings. The best key initiatives are of high value to both Starbucks and the customer. So as Starbucks thinks about a key initiative, it's something that you would really like to accomplish at your customer. Something that's been really unavailable, out of reach, or not within scope. For the customer, it's something that's very valuable and something that they usually need a partner for. They need expertise. They need a partner's experience, or they may need resources they currently don't have access to. When I think of a key initiative, I close my eyes and I think, what do I wish for at this customer? If I could do anything with them, if I could accomplish anything, what would it be? So now that we know how important initiatives are and that they drive the JBP, what drives initiatives? Value drives initiatives. And the best value elements solve the customer's problem or capitalize on a customer's opportunity. So, as you may already have realized, value for each party drives initiatives. It's a two-way street. The customer will have value elements that enable Starbucks to solve their problems or capitalize on their opportunities. On the other hand, Starbucks has value elements that enable the customer to solve big problems or capitalize on their opportunities. Both parties have needs and opportunities, and both parties have something of value to offer each other. But don't be tricked. All value elements are not created equal. The best, the highest value is when you have a unique differentiator. This is something that you have that your competitor does not. It sets you apart. Unique differentiators are far and few between in business today. Companies work hard to create and sustain any unique differentiator they may have. So if you have one, it is truly of high value to you and to your customers. The next best value element is where you are better than your competitor. So the competitor may also offer what you have, but they are not better than you. This is often the case. And finally, if all else fails, a value element could be something where you're at least as good as or equal to your competitors. So let me show you an example of value elements. Remember our example, big grocery retailer? Well, here's an example of value elements that they have to offer their manufacturer. Remember the candy manufacturer? They can provide immediate distribution to the largest number of physical stores in the United States. Actually, this is a unique differentiator. Why? Because they have the single largest number of stores in the U.S., brick and mortar. They also have the capability to distribute new items fast. In fact, they are quickest to market with new items. Second, they are willing to pilot and test new concepts. This is not a unique differentiator, but it is still of value to the candy manufacturer. And lastly, they can bundle cross-category merchandising concepts. This is a unique differentiator because most brick-and-mortar retailers are able but unwilling to do this cross-category merchandising in their category. Now, let's take a look on the other side at what the manufacturer has that may be of value to big grocery retailer. Many manufacturers have shopper insights, but this manufacturer is known for having the best shopper research and insights than any of its competition. So although it's not unique to them, they are so much better that it makes them much more valuable. This manufacturer has shopper insights. This manufacturer is known for having far better shopper research than any of their competition. So, although it's not unique to them, they are so much better, it makes it of high value. Number 2, they have great innovation. Again, this is not a unique differentiator because other competitors also innovate. However, this manufacturer is widely recognized as one of the most innovative CPG manufacturers globally. And finally, they have global experience with online marketing. This is not unique, and in fact, they are not better than their competitors. They are simply just as good. Okay, now, how about Starbucks? Here's some food for thought. This could get you started as you start to think about the value Starbucks has for your customer and what your customer might have that would be of value to Starbucks. Let's start with the customer. What value element does the customer have that might be of value to Starbucks? Number 1, the customer could offer Starbucks a disproportionate share across the fundamentals. Share of shelf, share of SKUs, share of merchandising. That might not be a unique differentiator, but certainly would be a very high value to Starbucks. 2, the customer could be willing to implement signature aisle solutions chain-wide. Again, not unique, but certainly a very high value to Starbucks. And 3, the customer might be willing to be an innovation partner, perhaps do an alpha pilot in market with Starbucks. These are just 3 possibilities. Let's take a look at what value elements Starbucks could offer the customer. Number 1, branding power. Starbucks has global brand recognition, and that is unique. There are literally only a handful of brand names that can make that claim. In addition, the Starbucks equity goes across multiple channels, retail stores, CPG, as well as the digital platform. This could be a unique differentiator, as no other competitor in the coffee category has the branding power of Starbucks. Second, coffee knowledge. Many coffee companies say they know coffee, but very few have the knowledge Starbucks has in sourcing, procurement, and innovation combined with that in-store experience. Third, Starbucks digital platform. Again, this may not be a unique differentiator, but could be a very high value to a CPG retailer, as today their top priority is winning online. These are just some examples of possible value elements. Only you and your team can identify the specific value elements that are important to your customer. You and your team need to invest the time to identify the unique value elements that Starbucks has to offer that are of greatest interest to your specific customer. As homework, we'll be asking you to create a list of value elements your customer has that are important to Starbucks, and to create a list of value elements Starbucks has that are important to your customer. So we know that initiatives drive the JBP, and we know that value drives initiatives. So now let's use the value that we've identified and think about how to create these initiatives. To do this, we need to go back to Module 1. Remember when you worked to develop a deep understanding of your customer's business? You're going to use that knowledge now. To create the most powerful initiatives, we ask the question, where can Starbucks help? Your deep understanding of the customer's business, their needs, their opportunities. You'll use that now as you think about solutions. Value elements. What value elements does Starbucks have that can help the customer? Then you need to be sure to think about what is important to Starbucks. What does Starbucks want or need at this customer to help them meet their needs or to capitalize on their opportunities? Here's an example. Let me frame this for you. Your customer has multiple objectives and lots of metrics and goals that they need to meet. These differ for different levels in the organization. So if you think about the C level, what do they need? You'll want to scope up and think about bigger, more challenging, more strategic needs and opportunities. However, as you get closer to the middle management and buyer level, their needs and opportunities change. They might have a different, smaller scope, be maybe more short-term, sometimes even transactional. I encourage you to think big and go up. Include initiatives that address strategic, long-term opportunities. Remember, together these two companies are going to invest and going to deliver something together that neither could achieve alone. So take a minute and look at these examples. Go ahead, put me on hold. Okay, this top box includes more strategic corporate goals and opportunities. Naturally, they require solutions from Starbucks that meet the challenge. The box below contains customer needs and opportunities that may be more short-term and fundamental, but yet they're still critically important to the customer. Starbucks has solutions for this too, and they are very important to Starbucks. As you think about creating initiatives on your team for your customer, you'll want to think about what does the customer need and what value elements does Starbucks have that can help them meet that need or capitalize on the opportunity. Of course, you'll want to do the same for Starbucks. What opportunities and needs does Starbucks have? And then think about value elements your customer can offer Starbucks. Now, you've done all this work, and it's time to finally think about translating all of this into an initiative. We think this diagram provides a good visual on how to create initiatives. Remember, the best initiatives deliver something that each party wants. It's finding the match. So this is, again, our friend, big grocery retailer. And as you can see, the manufacturer team here identified 4 things that are important to big grocery retailer. Create a consumer-preferred in-store experience that gets beyond price. They want to create a unique competitive advantage combining online and brick and mortar. They want to expand the use of digital programs. And finally, they want to reduce returns and damage. Now that manufacturer team, the candy folks, they created a list of 3 things that they want. Leverage their shopper insights so that they can help create a shopper-preferred environment, which they know will create a competitive advantage for them. Optimize their new product innovation because they want to win with new items. And finally, they want to reduce returns. The next step is to look for the match. Where might the customer needs and the manufacturer needs overlap? Sometimes there's not a lot of overlap. However, in this example, there is. And you can see how this match created 3 initiatives that they can work on together that will deliver against each partner's needs and opportunities. So, they're going to work to create the most consumer-preferred in-store experience, store within store, be first and best with all new items, and manage the customer experience to improve satisfaction and reduce returns. This next slide gives you an example of what the work looks like. It's a busy slide. You might want to put me on pause and take a moment and read it. First, you'll see each initiative is given what we call a memorable name. You'll see the action plan in place to deliver each initiative. Let's take a look at one of these. The first initiative has been given the name Out of This World Store Experience. The action plan includes using the manufacturer's shopper research and shopper insight to create a new in-store experience. They're going to test with a pilot in one store and put in place a measurement tracking system using NPS, Net Promoter Score. There's also measures at this level of detail, and they estimate this could be worth $4 million in incremental revenue for the retailer, at a cost of $800,000 to the retailer to implement chain-wide. The benefit to the manufacturer is a disproportionate share of the $4 million. Specifically, they estimate $1.6 million or 40% versus their 30% share of market at this customer. So now you've done all the hard work to identify the value element, think about the customer needs and your needs, think about solutions for the customer and solutions for you and Starbucks. And you've matched the opportunities to create the initiatives. This is all terrific work, but the ultimate success of your joint business plan depends on enrolling and aligning key stakeholders and the senior leaders in this joint business plan and their initiatives. So the next step is to think about who needs to be aligned and how you're going to accomplish that. Joint business planning is an enterprise-wide effort. This is not a sales plan or a sales event. In addition, the best joint business plans are multifunctional in nature and enroll as many functions as possible to maximize the impact. And finally, the senior leaders need to be supportive. Ideally, that means they need to be aligned and in agreement with your initiative, plans, and of course, your goals. So let's talk about being an enterprise-wide, multifunctional effort and how that may be different from what you're currently doing. This is the famous bow tie. It's a great visual for the traditional buyer-seller relationship where everything goes from the customer through the buyer to your company. And the salesperson is the point of contact for your company to the customer. The buyer and the seller are almost a bottleneck. Doing a joint business plan flips the bow tie. As you can see, doing a JBP creates the opportunity for each function to connect directly with their counterpart at the customer. Sales still needs to take the lead, but by enrolling all of the function, the result is a much more inclusive plan with a much bigger scope and broader implications for the business. What we have found is that leveraging the multiple functions across the team can create something innovative and really out-of-the-box thinking. Let me share a personal experience I had. One of my roles while I was at Procter & Gamble was the team leader of a global strategic account. P&G and the account agreed to engage in joint business planning. This was an all-in effort by both parties. The P&G team was expansive and inclusive. The multifunctional team included P&G procurement. That's how inclusive it was. As we brainstormed value elements, our procurement team member suggested energy purchasing as a differentiator because P&G bought such large quantities of energy for our factories. So that scale qualified us for very low rates. I know, right? Believe it or not, that value element was of very high interest to the customer, who was looking to reduce operating costs at their retail stores in the Northeast, where energy costs were especially high. So what's the outcome? The outcome was an initiative where the account purchased their energy for those stores in the state of Massachusetts through Procter & Gamble. I know. The savings that were generated were shared between the customer and P&G. Now, no money was actually ever sent to P&G, but what happened was P&G's share of that saved money was put into a merchandising fund that the customer then used to feature and display P&G product. This is a great story of a true win-win for the customer who saved money on energy and P&G who earned money, credits if you will, funding for merchandising events at that customer. This successful outcome is something that neither party could have done without the other, and certainly something that the buyer and the seller could not have done without their multifunctional counterparts' support. It's a great story, and it's a story that I was personally involved in. It's a story I tell all the time because it really demonstrates the potential and the power of joint business planning. So now I hope you're jazzed about the power of JBP, and you've gotten this far with initiatives. So what's next? Are you all set? No, not yet. You may have your multifunctionals enrolled, but how about your senior leaders? So, as you think about enrolling your senior leaders and other key stakeholders, here are some insight into how to think about doing this. Your most senior leaders, your most senior executives, they care about the why. Why should we engage with this customer? Why is this in our best interest? Is this a strategic fit for our business? They will be interested in understanding the strategic impact the JBP will have on their company. Your middle managers will be interested in the how. How can we execute this JBP with a customer? How is this going to change the business practices that we currently operate within? How might we have to make accommodations to these business practices if we are going to execute these initiatives? And alternatively, a lot of your business partners internally are going to be responsible for actually executing. And they're going to be wondering, what? What am I going to have to do? How much more work will there be if I'm going to have to engage in this JBP? What will this mean for them? What will this mean for their role? What will this mean for the work processes that they engage in? So when you think about enrolling people, keep in mind the scope and the concern of each stakeholder and leader, and explain your JBP based on their questions and their interests. That concludes the second module in this joint business planning series. We certainly hope that as a result of participating in this video, you now recognize the difference between joint business planning initiatives and a simple Starbucks selling idea. That you can identify Starbucks high-value elements and customer high-value elements. And that you can actually create and understand the work required to create initiatives. That you understand the importance of aligning internal stakeholder and have some insights into how best to approach your internal stakeholders. Let's talk about homework in preparation for Module 3. We're going to ask that you review your work from Module 1 on customer needs so that you're clear on what Starbucks wants from a JBP with your customer, and review the value elements that you created in your workbook. Then complete the pages in your workbook that say Module 2. Please do all of this before you start the Module 3 video. The pages in your workbook will look like this and like this. Now for some frequently asked questions. You may remember we did this in Module 1. Our first frequently asked question is, why do we create initiatives first? If this is really joint business planning, shouldn't it be done in partnership with the customer? So this is really a reasonable question to ask. Here's the thinking. We found that the most efficient and effective way to jointly create initiatives with the customer is to start with something already begun for them to react to. This provides them an example from you on what an initiative could or should look like. We've learned through experience that it is very time-consuming and very challenging to ask the customer to start with a white sheet of paper from scratch and try to identify value items and create initiatives. By providing the customer a starting point that they can react to, that they can revise and adjust, suggest initiatives that may be important to them, or reframe and revise, it gives the work a jump start. The second question we get is, are all value elements the same? Are they all created equal? Well, I hope you've learned through this module that, in fact, they are not all created equal. The strongest, highest value elements are unique differentiators. However, be aware that unique differentiators are really far and few between. If a company has even one unique differentiator, it is a big positive, and these are most coveted by the customer. So please, please do not give away your unique differentiators And if you do use them, make sure you get something back of equal or greater value. And our third question, how big should an initiative be? If they're too big, maybe the customer will be overwhelmed and not want to engage. So our experience here is the bigger the better. If the company is going to invest in joint business planning with resources, people, and money, both companies need to get something very worthwhile from this effort. It's much easier to downsize the scope of an initiative than to suggest a lot of small ideas and hope that they deliver big results. For those of you who know me, remember what I say. Hope is not a plan. Think big. Our final question for this module is, how do I align internal stakeholders, and really, how important is this? Actually, this internal alignment is critical to success. The last thing a customer team wants to do is interact with the customer, get the customer excited about a possible initiative, only to learn that you don't have the internal support or agreement to proceed and execute. Internal alignment before engaging with the customer is critical. And we found that the best way to align internally is to cast a wide net. Identify all of the potential stakeholders, prioritize them based on the work, and work your way through the list. We suggest keeping in mind the role of the stakeholder in the decision. Are they a very senior person thinking about strategic fit? Or is this a manager who might be thinking about how are we going to execute this with our current system? Or is it one of your peers who actually has to do the work with you? Think about your internal stakeholder as your internal customer and prepare accordingly. So I hope that you have found this video module to be insightful and productive. Thank you for participating, and we look forward to seeing you in Module 3.